Welcome to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I'm your host, Shade Curry, and I believe every divorced woman deserves a romantic relationship where she feels safe, loved, and cherished. You can create the most amazing life after divorce, and I will teach you how. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I'm your host, Shade Curry. And listen, you guys do not know just how excited and delighted and all around giggly to have today's guest on Zoom with me. I am here with Corinne Crabtree, and she is one of the master coaches at the Life Coach School where I got certified. And she has just been a life coach for me. She may not know it, a teacher, a mentor, all around inspiration for years now. So welcome, Corinne. Thank you so much for being here. Just a little bit about Corinne.
Yeah, that's an amazing little intro.
Oh, I'm not done yet. I'm not done. I think one of the things that we all love about you is that you keep it real. Like, you're super real. Like, no BS is your is your brand, and you really do have no BS. So leading up to the fact that you keep things really real, you work with women who are losing weight, so weight loss, emotional eating, women who are building businesses, things about money. And all of these are so intertwined with divorce. I know women who have experienced divorce are thinking about all of these things. And your divorce was decades ago now, but since then you have been remarried 21 years now, in your second marriage, happily remarried. I listened to another podcast episode that you did talking about your marriage and just how awesome and the kind of work that you guys do. So I know it's legit. 21 years is legit.
Yes.
Your No BS weight loss program has about 13,000 members in it. Your No BS Businesswoman program has around 300 women in it. And your yearly revenue is right around $14 million a year. Mm-hmm. You have done all the things that women who are reinventing themselves around their divorce basically want to do. We want to be healthy. We want to make money. We want to fix the money mistakes, and we want to create amazing relationships. And so this is I think probably the most epic episode I feel that I'm going to do this year, because I want you to just be able to, I want women to be able to hear what's possible around all of these things after a divorce. So again, welcome, Corinne. Please say hello to the listeners and tell them who you are. Just a little bit about yourself.
Well, I grew up, very poor. I also grew up without a dad. So my parents divorced when my mom had me at 17. She had my brother at 19. And by 21, she was divorced. And so my dad had very little to do with us. I know him now, but you can imagine he was 16 years old. So, as I was in the years where I needed a daddy, he was just in the years that he was just we should party, So it was tough. Because of that, I spent most of my life feeling rejected, seeking men's attention, worrying I would never be able to have a man, very overweight, I think about all the societal messaging that I had growing up. It's no wonder that by the time I was in my 20s, I was well over 250 pounds. I was already divorced. I actually got engaged to another guy. I was smart enough to call that one off after the first divorce. It taught me a lot about, regardless, it was very pivotal for me because I had a lot of low self-esteem all of my life due to my weight, but something in that marriage when I ended it told me, regardless of my weight, I will never settle again when it comes to relationship. I'd rather be on my own than to put up with bullcrap. And so I had, met this other guy in my mid-20s. We lived together. We were going to get married. My mom had bought my wedding dress, all the things. And I just found out some stuff, and I just realized I'm getting married for all the wrong reasons. I wasn't marrying for love. I wasn't marrying because we were good friends. I was literally marrying because he had a good job and I could tolerate him. And just there was just nothing there. So I left that. And then when I finally met my current husband, we got married and it was just so different. Like we were best friends. We talked about everything. We just have fun together. Like I would try things he was interested in. He's trying things I was interested in. And then we had a son about a year after we got married. And my weight was just skyrocketing. I was well over 250 again for like the 100th time in my life. And I was at a point in my life where I was getting really depressed and decided to lose weight. Decided I was going to do it in a way that I could live my life, that I was going to have to change how I talk to myself. Like when you come out of divorce, I think we all try to reinvent ourselves after we come out of divorce. It was like for me, because of my first divorce, I had reinvented myself in terms of I'll never settle again. I finally met someone that I knew I wasn't settling. Like I really knew this is the person I'm supposed to be with. And then I had this extra reinvention that came along for the ride in my marriage, which was, it's just time to start taking care of yourself. Like we just can't keep doing this. And I had no good reason to keep, just keeping my weight on. Like it was just amazing to me to just wake up one day, hit a rock bottom and just realize it's all going to change today. And it did. And I didn't change everything on a dime in one day, but I made the critical decision that day that I was going to change. There was no more trying. There was no more anything. I was just going to figure out how to change. And that put me on a path to lose 100 pounds. Then I started a business around it because I wanted other women to feel amazing. I had noticed that this time when I lost weight, I didn't feel good just because I was thin. I felt good because I'd learned how to talk to myself differently and I learned how to treat myself differently. And I did everything because I was ready to do it, not because I forced myself to do it. And that's what I wanted for women. I wanted them to have that like true reinvention of themselves.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. I want to just ask about what you mean by we can't keep doing this and that critical decision, because I see this with women who are dating as well. There's a difference between the women that I work with who haven't made the critical decision to actually date in a way that gets them to a healthy relationship. They're still, like you said, trying it. People use the word, well, I'm dabbling on the apps.
Yeah.
And there's just such a parallel to what you're talking about with weight loss. It's like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to try. I'm going to lose the weight today, or this is the day. What's the difference between when you say this is the day, but you're still trying, and you say this is the day and you're committed?
For me, it was, I had looked at why was I not successful at past weight loss? And I really separated it from, like, whenever we ask that question, the first thoughts that always come up, usually, especially if you have low self-esteem, which mine was like under the house. It was like really bad. We make it personal. It's like, well, you're lazy, you're no good. You're not good enough, like that. I had to bypass that part. I was like, no, I actually want to know, like, strategically, tactically, what has been happening in previous attempts to lose weight that I just need to stop trying those methods. So I really it's funny because I didn't at the time really understand that was exactly what I was doing. I was not a life coach. I didn't even read self-help. The only books I'd read back then were Harry Potter books. Like, I was not the voracious studier that I am now. But there was this thing inside me that said, look at the patterns. And what I noticed was every time I tried to lose weight, I would always pick a program that required me to do a 180 in how I lived. So like if today I was going to McDonald's, tomorrow I have to like grill chicken and eat broccoli. And I remember thinking, like, that's a problem. You're not ready for all of that. We need to do things that we're ready for. So I need to get better at figuring out what's that next step I'm ready for. And it just made sense to me that if I stayed very focused on the next thing that I was ready to do, that I felt like I could do, that even if it was hard, I knew but I could talk myself into it, that would mean I would keep moving forward. And as long as I kept moving forward, I was like, well, eventually you'll get there. So we just need to like stay very focused on more of the immediate future. For me, and I don't know if this is your clients, but I had so much failure at weight loss that it was like very overwhelming or scary to think about that future self. Like I had ideas of what she might be, but I honestly didn't really know, because everything that I would think about the future self was clouded through like what society said my future self should look like and what society said you should do for a diet and like all of the diet industry rules. So it was really hard for me to dream about her. Like I would shut down emotionally. So I just stopped doing that. I just said, there is a future version of me one day who's lost weight. I think she might be doing these things. That's all right. Like I was just like, I don't know. But what I do know is that this week, the future version of me is doing this. So I just brought everything to the micro. And that's what, when I said like I had to do things radically different, that was like the biggest shift for me was letting go of doing radical things and going all in and being like, no, let's just break this down to what can we do today? Let's meet ourselves where we're at. Because of my past version of me also, like I realized that so much of when I was losing weight was based in trying to beat myself into submission. Like, you're not good enough, you're too lazy, you're too fat. So therefore you should do these things. And I was like, I can't afford to talk to myself like that anymore. I realized that when I did that enough, that it would always shut me down to where I would need a break on the weekends from my diet. And I realized I was never taking a break from a diet. I was taking a break from the person who was beating myself up every day. On the weekends, if I would eat, I'd call it taking a break from the diet. I was really just taking a break from Corinne. So I knew I had to build a relationship where I never needed a break from myself ever again.
Do you wonder exactly how divorced women just like you are meeting eligible men who want a real relationship and a commitment? They're doing it by dating with their core values. Your core values are the GPS that lead you to the partner you've been looking for. When you use your core values on dating apps, text messages, and at social events, you will easily connect with your true match partner without chasing, settling, or wasting time with non-committal men. I have taught exactly how to do this in the 2-hour Core Values Dating Blueprint course available on my website, shadecurry.com/dating. That's SADECURRY.com/dating. You will learn exactly how to identify your core values and use them on your dating profile, how to ask the right questions via text, and how to tell the right stories on dates so that you attract the right people and repel those who aren't right for you. If you're ready to meet your true match, hop over to shadecurry.com/dating or click the link in the show notes. Now back to the episode.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I knew you had said, I don't know if these are your clients. This is 100%. Listeners, like when you talked about, just doing what was immediately in front of you, a lot of times women try to find their husband on the apps. So they're scrolling through 1,000 men looking for the man who looks like their husband. Right? It's not 180. And I'm like, no, we're looking for decent men who are reasonable humans, and we're going on coffee dates. That's it. That's all we're doing. We're not going to, have to marry, probably not going to marry any of them for a minute.
Right.
We're just going to get out of the house, learn how to have conversations with men, because chances are you've had conversations with your dad, your brother, and your ex-husband in the last 30 years that you've been married. You don't even know how to make conversation. And so that's 100% a parallel to that. And they take a break from the apps. They exhaust themselves from beating themselves up from the rejection and the failure and everything for a month. And then it's like, yeah, the apps are exhausting. But it's like, no, it's the way you're thinking about what you're doing. It's the way you're thinking about yourself when someone doesn't swipe back on you.
Yes.
That's, there's a lot of beating ourselves up in the dating space as well. Can you talk a little bit more about how you achieve things while having low self-esteem? Because there's also this thought that we have that, okay, I have to be perfectly healed, perfectly confident, my self-esteem needs to be all of these things before I can date. But you got married. You got remarried while yourself. I mean, some things changed. Tell you what, you weren't the same person who, was married the first time and got divorced, but you weren't perfectly
No.
or whatever.
Sometimes I feel bad for my husband for the first few years we were married. I still worried, like I was the kind of person who tested love all the time because I had been rejected so much in my life, and especially by men, that I did a lot of that, testing of our love, if you don't come home at a certain time, I would get real mad and scream and holler that, you don't love me, trying to get him to come home so that I could feel safe that he loved me. I mean, the first few years of our marriage, I have to give a lot of credit to Chris, because I was not the person that most people know me as today. I didn't even hit life coaching until 2015, and we got married in 2001. And so I didn't do self-help and all this other stuff. So he was patient. He loved me. He rarely got upset about it. But I always tell Chris, I was like, I can't believe you're not a life coach. Because he would always just ask me questions that would calm me down, things like that. But I think what's important, I guess, for me. So what was the question? How did I do this?
And I think in life coach speak, we talk about we don't have to have perfect thoughts.
Yes.
Okay. So that's how we say it in the life coach school. And I think for a lot of my clients, sometimes they want to get perfectly healed. They want me to help them to not feel rejection and to feel perfectly confident, or they feel like they can't get a man unless they are this angel. And I'm like, listen, there's plenty of women out there who are not doing the work you're doing, who meet men. There's the thinking, feeling, changing, and healing part of this process. But then there's also just the practical process where you just do the things.
Yeah. Well, I think so. This works in weight loss. This works in business. This works in dating. I like to think of it this way. I'm going to put myself into positions to feel rejected and to feel these other things so that I can build my personal resiliency. So I can build my relationship with myself. And I just always tell myself, it's look, there's we are all smart enough to know that, let's say you want to get married one day, you're going to have to go on a lot of dates to do that. We just all know the formula. Date a lot of people, you'll find someone. Don't date a lot of people, you ain't going to find nobody. No one's coming on and knocking on your door saying I heard you were single and looking, and I happened to meet the criteria. Never going to happen. Yeah. So a lot of times we have to remember is that if we intellectually know what we need to do, we just need to go out there and do it while we're learning how to make taking that action less painful for ourselves.
Yes.
So it's we don't want to spend our entire life forcing ourselves to take action. But in the beginning, before you believe in yourself, before your mindset's changed, before any of that's happened, you do have to make yourself. And we don't make ourselves in a negative way. We make ourselves do it because we know the only thing stopping you is fear.
Yeah.
So now go do these things. And as you uncover, if you're beating yourself up, if you're feeling rejected and stuff, work on yourself while you keep taking the action is required to get to where you want to go.
Yeah.
That's with my clients, they'll know the way that I teach them to lose weight is they can eat whatever they want. I'm always look, the quality of food that you're eating is the least interesting thing to weight loss. Weight loss first and always cares most about, are you eating when you're hungry? Are you eating too much? You get that dialed, all that other stuff can wait, and sometimes doesn't even have to be addressed. And a lot of times it just naturally changes as you get more just better at not emotionally eating anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell them in the beginning, you will have to stop you'll have to stop eating to full, and it will feel like butt. Your brain will say you're wasting food. Your brain will say you're going to miss out on something. Your brain's going to do all of the whining. We don't keep eating to full until our brain quits whining. It will never learn how to quit whining until you keep taking the action. And every time it whines, you remind it of what the purpose is. And you remind it of why you're doing it. And eventually it starts thinking different. So yeah, like I agree with you. We're not waiting to feel better before we take action.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Nice if it happens, but we're not waiting.
Yeah. And I think I've seen that in following your story and following your work. You do that all the time. Like you, and I think that's one of the questions I was going to ask later, but this is probably a good time. Like you've made all of these quote unquote quantum leaps in your life and in your business and just accomplished so much. Is this one of the cornerstones of how you've done that? Is like just taking that action, you're speaking, you're doing podcasts, you're creating new businesses along the way. How do you engage that part of your brain to take action when you're not ready? Or when your brain thinks you're not ready?
Yeah, like it's such an interesting question. I've never really thought about it, but it definitely is how I operate. And I've operated like this for a long time. I probably just I probably just don't give myself any other option. Like I don't sit around and think you're supposed to wait. Like I sit around and just think like, let's just get started. Like the fastest way to accomplish something is to get started as fast as possible. Now, sometimes that does mean like you might want to research and you might want to do a few things, but most of the time, what I see people do is they wait too long to get started on their dream project or their idea or whatever it is that they want. Like they stretch out the front part thinking they're going to like do all this prep work. And it's like we're doing a lot of stuff, but the stuff we're doing isn't actually getting us started. It's stuff that we're building and doing in hopes we'll never have to feel bad or that everything will work so we don't have to feel bad. And I just don't do that. I just agree. Like my thought probably is if we get started, we'll quickly find out what's not working. And when we fix those things, think about how good we'll feel. I'm never thinking about how I need to guard against feeling bad. I just think feeling bad is just, I don't know. I have a good relationship with it. I have felt bad thousands and thousands and thousands of times in my life. And yet here I am. I think a lot of people don't even realize how often they have felt bad in life and survived just fine.
Yeah.
And yet we're so afraid of it.
Yes. I think the lesson many of us take away, and I recognize this in myself and most of my clients, is we're trying to figure out a way to protect ourselves from the feeling we anticipate. It's like, if I go out on this date and he doesn't like me, I'm going to feel rejected. So then some of my clients will over prepare. So they'll be dressing up for 3 hours for a date, and then dating feels exhausting. Yeah. Some will be too picky about who they go on a date with. They'll be like, oh my God, he has to be perfect so that I minimize the chance that he's going to reject me. And then if that person then does reject them, then they feel 10 times worse. So there's always, like you said, this preparation to not feel bad. Like, how can we make friends with that? Like you said, we've done it. But I think the message some of us have taken away, many of my clients have taken away is, oh, that felt bad. I need to make sure I don't feel that again versus this is a part of life.
Well, I think it's the whole, like, it's your relationship with feeling bad, like it's like for me, my relationship with feeling bad is it's a part of life. I'm never going to escape it. I can not make it a big, freaking deal when it happens. That's part of what's in my control. I can also I think one thing that as coaches that we're good at, and like if you are working with a coach, they can help you separate out the part of feeling bad that's normal that we want. It's like if somebody, let's say I go out on a date with someone and I really like them. And I'm like, oh gosh, this is it. We've hit it off. And they're just like, it's a no. And they do not text me back and stuff. I would say in my mind, like, oh my God, it's so normal to feel bad right now. Like you're disappointed. You thought all these things. And when things like that don't work out, of course you feel bad. So there's like feeling bad with this level of compassion and a strong relationship with yourself and normalizing it. But what most people do is they get rejected and they're like, oh God, I feel bad. Oh no, that means that like I'll never marry anyone and this is terrible. I hate feeling like this. This is why dating sucks. Blah, 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 blah. Then you're like feeling bad on top of feeling angry, frustrated, self-loathing. Like you've got like all this other crap piled on top. When we like normal run-of-the-mill disappointment, hurt and stuff isn't so bad until you layer in the crap on top.
Yeah.
And that's the part where I think it's so important. It's probably like, I don't layer a lot of crap on top. Like, it's funny. I get coached all the time. I have my own coach. I have tons of crap thoughts. Like, trust me, like people are always like, oh, you teach master coaches. You are a master coach and you teach all these people. Like, they think I just must float on a cloud from room to room in my house every day. No, I start my day everybody else. I'm like, screw this. I can't believe I got to do all this today. And then I'm like, just trying to get myself to the next step, you know? And it's like, I think it's easy for me. Like, I don't need to feel really great all the time because I also don't make myself feel really bad often. I just kind of stay along here. And then every now and then life throws curveballs. Sometimes it throws a pitch right down the middle and you can hit a home run. And those are the moments when you feel really good. It's like the world set me up to feel really good. And other times it's like, ooh, that was a knuckleball. And like, I totally struck out. And, you know, we feel pretty bad about it. But most of my life is just spent in that middle ground.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I love it. And that really parallels how I try to talk about dating, because the media, like if you Google dating, you haven't had to do that in 21 years before Google was around. But it is the thoughts out on the internet where most people are looking for advice are terrible. And people are gathering with their friends and making it more terrible and venting about it. And I talk a lot about, like, can we make it neutral? Can we just make it like the app is just pixels on the screen? The guy is just another human sitting across from you, just keeping it 100% in the middle until we meet someone that makes us like feel really good. And maybe things start to move in a different direction. So so thank you for sharing that. That really does help a lot to explain kind of like a lot of what happens, even with dating. I did want to ask how you met Chris. Like, what was your dating story?
Well, it's so funny is, you know, like today dating online is so normalized. We had another couple that was, they got married right before us. So we met at work and there was another couple that was there around us that they had met online. The guy worked with Chris. And back then it was just so skeezy. Like, you know, we were just like, are you sure? Like, you don't know her?
It's
like,
still skeezy.
Anybody on the internet, you know, like it was just so dangerous. And I wanted to say right even before I would tell this story is me back, like, this is what's so hilarious. This is how we know our brains make everything a problem. When I was looking for Chris, or I wasn't even looking for anyone at the time, honestly, I'd kind of written off a lot of like, I just never thought I'd get married. I was like, it's not for me after my first marriage. I wouldn't give anything to have had an app because all we had was like grocery stores. You better know somebody that knows somebody. So we happened to meet at work. We worked for a company. We were in 2 different departments. Our departments had to work together a lot. And Chris actually liked my best friend in the department, did not like me. And I didn't like him at all. And she happened to not like him either. So like it was just a weird situation. Perfect. And so we had to work together a lot. And I just thought he was a complete a-hole. Like, I was like, oh God, this guy, like terrible. But I had another friend who worked at this company who was really good friends with him. She had known him since high school. And she just pulled me aside one day when we went to dinner and she said, I think you and Chris would do so good together. And I was like, are you smoking crack? Like, there's no way. And she's like, no, I'm telling you. So a bunch of us started going out to dinner. We were all like like just, there was like a group of 10 of us that worked there. And he and I ended up sitting next to each other often. I was dating someone else from that company at the time, but we were just like casually dating. It wasn't like a deep relationship. And the more I got to know him, the funnier I thought he was. And like, no one thought he was funny, but his sense of humor was just real clever and like dry and stuff. And I just thought it was hilarious. So we hung out, and then he got to where he had feelings for me, and he took me and my other friend to a restaurant one night and had her leave the table. And he said, I really like you. I want to go out with you, but I would never date somebody else's girl. Mm-hmm. And he was like, if you ever decide to break up with Will, I'd love to take you out. 2 days later, I'm like on the phone with Will. Like,
like listen.
And then we started dating. And I mean, like, I just knew, like, it looked literally, I don't want to say it's like the movies. It almost was like the movies, though. Mm-hmm. I remember the first time that we did go out, he kissed me, and I just felt it all over me. When about 6 weeks into our dating, I knew I'd marry him. Like, I just thought, this is the one. Like, I couldn't even imagine having any more in common with, like, we had a lot in common, but we also are polar opposites. People that know us are always shocked that we are married, because we think so differently. I'm very outgoing. He's not outgoing at all. I'm super silly all the time. Like, I tell him all the time, I don't even know how you live with me and Logan, our son, because we're just silly and we pick on him all the time. And he is so serious. So I don't know, but that's how we met. And we got married about, we moved in together about 8 months after we started dating. And then we got married a little after that. And then we got married in November. And by February, we were pregnant with our little boy. And we've just never looked back.
Yeah. So it sounds like the whole process took about a year. Like from when you met to when you come in, which I love, because that's like,
by the time we came into each other's real circle, started dating and doing all the things, it was about 1.5 years when we got married.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a nice timeline. I like it. It's nice and slow paced. I did want to ask, like, going back to what you thought about him, because I think there's a narrative around, pick the guy you don't like, and then he'll turn out on the other side to be somebody you really like. And that doesn't always work out for everyone. Right. Or polar opposites, like, so people use these external attributes or these like little cliches to try to pick a partner. Did you ever look back as to why you thought he was an asshole initially, and what you didn't know about him that made you think that?
So he was rude at work, like rude. He would agree. That was his younger self. He was like, oh yeah. Now when I look back on it as a seasoned man, I'm like, he's like, I was rude. But he was super honest, but in just like there was no people pleasing in him. Like, if he was going to be a no on a project, it would just be like, no, this is dumb, and here's why. And like, just would like tell you to your face. Yeah. And so I didn't like that. Yeah. And he was also super serious at work. Like, he was always in a hurry. He presented like everything that he was working on was important, and nothing you worked on was ever important.
Oh, I know some people like that.
Yeah. And he really is a super intelligent guy. Like, he's like there's like an ultra level of Mensa, and he belonged to it for years. And so he talked with really big words. Almost, it always came across like he wanted to confuse the little people. Yeah. and I am just like, I'm also blunt and very in your face and stuff, but my personality type will be very blunt, and you'll agree with me that I'm right. Like, I'm an influencer type, it's like, yeah, you're a dumbass, but isn't that great about you? And you're like, yay. Chris is right the opposite. So I think that was why we kind of clashed. It was like two people who really are driven and wanted things, and coming at it from very different angles was probably why we clashed so much.
Yeah. How did you work that out? Or did you even have to work that out? Or did he like shift in? Because sometimes people are different in different settings. Did he shift in relationship or did you have to work that out? And I asked that because my husband and I, it's a second marriage for both of us. And that's one of the things we had to work out, like our conflict resolution style. Like we're both pretty awesome and we love each other, but like he's very intelligent. I'm very intelligent. We both kind of use big words or big concepts. Mm-hmm. And we have to be like, all right, we're literally just talking about something simple.
Yeah.
We don't have to go all out about it. How did you work that out in your relationship?
With Chris, the first thing that really helped was and this was his idea, when we first started dating, he wanted to talk about what was most important in a relationship, because for him, like for me, I was like, oh, this is so lovely. And, no one's ever wanted to do this. And for him, it was super practical. He was like, I just don't want to waste my time on someone who we're not going to be on the same page in how relationships work. And so one of the things we talked about was we need to be really honest with each other about what we need from each other and listen. Doesn't mean we'll always give it to each other, but we really made an agreement in the early days that we were going to listen. And so very often, and this is like, I look back on it now because I handle it differently now. Very often he would talk about things and I would feel stupid because I didn't go to college and I was a dropout. My first marriage, I eloped with a dude at 18. And by 21, I was divorced because he cheated on me. He stole from me. I dropped out of college my first semester to pay our bills because all he wanted to do is play Sega. I mean, he was just bringing in no money. He was pretty worthless, the whole relationship. But I needed him to know, like, I'm not stupid. And so a lot of times, and it was for me. And so a lot of times when he would be talking, I would just say, like, look, the way you're talking about this right now is making me feel stupid. Like, can you talk, like, can you bring it down? Like, I don't even understand the words you're saying, like the concepts or whatever. And in the beginning, he would water a lot of stuff down. And now I realize he was never making me feel stupid. Yeah. Now what I do is I'll say, like, hey, I don't understand this. I know you understand it better. Can you explain it to me in a way I'll understand it too? So like I've shifted over the years, but that's what I was saying early in our relationship, talking and really showing each other what we needed was going to be really important. One of Chris's needs, it's been very difficult for me that I only got good at it probably in the last couple of years. And we've been married for, 21, is he has a big need to be alone. Mm-hmm. He needs a lot of alone time. Like it's, important to him. Like working is important to him. Like I knew when I married him that his job was going to be like probably even with me for a long time because he's just super driven to work. And so I had to really learn how to not make that a problem in our marriage. And then and for years, it was like, I had to really work on this idea that it's my job to give him the gift of being alone. It's not my job to think that when he wants to be alone, there's a problem with me. Yeah. And so I worked on that forever. And when we started working together, he left his corporate gig of 25 years about 3 years ago. And I just thought, ooh, now I'm going to spend so much time with him. It was hard on our marriage. Because he was used to going to work and having drive time to be by himself. He could go to work, and if he needed to double down on a project, he could just stay late and close his office door. Now he was in our house. And here I am, like every 5 minutes knocking on the door. He finally just said, I need you to get on a schedule. Like you really are going to have to, we've got to come to an agreement of this is when we talk during the day. This is when we don't. If my door's closed, you do not come in, like those kinds of things. And I got offended at first. And this was just like 30 years ago. But I started working on it and I was like, he's just telling me what he needs. And I don't want to be the kind of wife that's so selfish that I won't like meet him where he's at. So we agreed about what it would look like. And as the CEO, I even had drama coming in because I was like, if anybody else was your boss, you wouldn't be laying the bricks down on how this would work. Like that was my first response. It was not enlightened.
Like it's part of your job to make me feel good. And
yeah. And so I'm going to pull the CEO card and say, like, the CEO says, you got to make me feel good. But eventually, like, we worked through it. Mm-hmm. Like he bent some, like, I just told him, I was like, I just need a few minutes every morning. I don't like starting my day without talking to you. Mm-hmm. It just makes my day go smoother. And if his door's shut, we have an agreement. I don't walk in unless it's a burning down emergency. You know, like if the internet, if our membership site goes down, I can knock on the door. But if it's like, I have a wild idea and I'd like to run it past you, he's like, no.
No. Yeah. I think it was a couple of weeks ago, my husband said, hey, you seem to have, because he works from home several days a week. He was like, you seem to have forgotten that I have a job. And I was like, I know, I remember. I'm just still coming into your office to talk.
I know. It's like, it was a dirty habit. And I still have to watch myself on that. Mm-hmm. You know, it's because in our relationship, like Chris literally is the one person in the world I could just spend all my time with. Like I just could. And I don't think we'd ever get bored of each other. And we're the kind of couple that this happens to us all the time. First of all, we're regulars everywhere we go. Like we're not super good at diversifying our restaurants and stuff. Like if we find a restaurant we like, it's the only restaurant we go to. So even when we go to Vegas, we go to the same pool, we go to the same restaurant, like everything is the same. Well, we just talk all the time. Like we just never run out of things to say. And people will come up and say, okay, we've been wanting to ask you a question, but we just hate bothering y'all. Y'all are always talking. It's like y'all don't ever stop talking. And we've had men come up to us specifically and ask us, how do y'all stay so interested in each other? Like, because in most relationships, after a few years, it's like the couple's lost interest in each other. Yeah. And, I don't know how we necessarily do it other than we make sure that we have things in common that we like doing. He tries a lot of crap I like. I try a lot of crap he likes. And then at the end of the day, we have found the few things that we both really enjoy. And that's just what we do together now.
Yeah. But I mean, you did say that it was sort of like that from the beginning. You didn't have to create that. And my theory, I don't know if this is like a scientific thing. I just feel like there's a combination in certain human beings that work.
Yeah.
And what I try to encourage my ladies to do is just find the combination from the beginning. Don't pick someone that you think you're going to have to change or it's going to get more interesting down the line or things like that. You need some core overlap right from the beginning. And then, because there's always surprises after you get married or partnered. There's always something that's going to pop up and you're going to be like, whoa. And so the key, you want to minimize those. You want to minimize the surprises.
I was going to say that's interesting because I never really thought of it that way. But when we did get together, he was the first person that I never needed to change. Like every other man that I'd been with had qualities that I thought needed to change. And Chris, he definitely, the only quality he had that I didn't think it needed to change, but I knew was going to be hard for me was his desire to want to work a lot. Yeah. Like his work has always been so important to him. And I knew it would be time consuming, which meant it would be less time for us. But it also taught me how to, if he hadn't have been so passionate about his job, I don't think I would have been willing to go so all in on building my businesses. Yeah. And like, it was almost like watching him like, wow, he gets ahead because it wasn't that he spent a lot of time at work, but he was just focused. He was very driven and like he would figure out what he needed to learn and what he needed to do. And I modeled that when I started my business and stuff. So, but I never felt like I had to change him. The only time the biggest problem we ever had in our marriage, it was that first year that we had Logan. I remember Logan was like 6 weeks old and he never slept. I mean, Logan literally breastfed and like was awake. It felt like 24/7. And by 6 weeks, I was like losing my mind and being there with him all the time. And there was this one night, the first few weeks, Chris was good about coming home on time. And then I could see like he was like leaving like 5 and 10 minutes later, and it was just kind of creeping up. And so this one night I call him at 4:45 because I knew if I didn't start nagging at 4:45, there's no telling when he'd come home. And all I wanted was a break. And he said something about wanting to work late on something. And I just laid the law down. And I said, no. I said, here's what you can do. You can come home. You can relieve me. I've been going at it all day. And then if you want to work more, you can go back once that kid's asleep.
Nice.
I just told him, like, that night when he came home, we had an honest conversation. And I just told him, I can't be here longer. Like, you have to leave work on time right now. You have got to figure out how to do your job in a way that, like, because it wasn't like his job was suffering. This was like him still wanting to be that young buck who didn't have a child energy. And I'm like, yep, shit's changed. Like, and I can't do this. And I'm not going to be a single parent. I just looked at him and said, I will not be a single parent. Yeah. And so he changed. He came home every night on time. He took over bath time at night. And if he needed to work extra, he got up early. And he was never an early riser. But he decided to change. And it was just like, I think that's important in any relationship when, like, nothing's ever going to be perfect. But what we want to do is we want to choose our battles. There are some things that Chris does that still to this day annoys me. So if I just let that crap go. But when I talk to him about something, I want it to matter. And he knows that I'm not coming with him with everything. I'm only coming when I have something that's like important and valuable to the relationship.
Yeah, that's so good. I love it. All right. I got 2 more questions I'm going to ask real quick. One is, I think you said you got divorced at 21?
Right before I turned 21.
21. Yeah. Like, I don't know if you can remember signing the papers or whatever. Like, what would almost 21-year-old Corinne think of Corinne today? Like, if she could have seen where you were going to be. And I know you're human and all the things, but like, she was going through a lot. What would she think of you today?
She'd be astonished because I actually do remember, because I went to the courthouse for the divorce thinking, like most women, hoping he'd show up to show that he actually cared. He didn't show up. He didn't give a crap. And she'd just be amazed because I literally, when I was done with him, I remember thinking, I'm probably never going to get married, but I'd rather be alone than be with someone who treated me like that. And it was like that. It was that was a reinvention moment for me that I was worth more than just being with someone who didn't really care about me. Yeah. So I think she'd be amazed that I did find someone, because I really didn't think I'd ever find someone. I thought I would maybe sleep around, because a lot of it was so laced in my weight. Like, to me, I just believed like it was so much courage for me to leave him, because I was at 250 then. And in my mind, big girls didn't get married. Like, this was it.
Yeah. So she could not have conceived of rich, love you, happily married, skinny Corinne.
She would have thought that at this age, I'd still be overweight. I'd have a job, probably desperately clinging on to it, because if I ever lost it, where would I go? That was always my big thing. Where would I go? And I wouldn't have anyone. Like, I think I had a belief system back then that you're all on your own. I had that belief system most of my life. Like, and now it's even my, you know how we all have an old belief that when times get really tough or something happens, you kind of fall into your old identity. Yeah. I do the same thing. When something gets really hard in my business and stuff, I'm just like, you are on your own on this one. No one can help you. You've got to shoulder all the burden. And I just strap my burden backpack on and start trudging.
Yeah. What would you tell her? Yeah. What would you tell her? Like, if you could, like, you know, how they do it in the movies where the future person comes and talks to them, like, what would you tell her in that moment about, like, what her life would be like, or what she needs to think and feel?
You know, honestly, and I really do believe this, like, I probably wouldn't want to talk to her at all, because she found her way. And I would not want to influence her to start changing too fast or to do anything different because I might have missed out on what I have. Like everything I went through my entire life, including my 20s after that, a lot of it was really hard and stuff, but it built my character. It gave me so much of the experience that I have now that I lean back on. I almost would be afraid to influence her at all. And then, like miss out on everything that I've had. And it could have even been better, but I just love what I have. I don't care if it would have made I don't care if I'd been Oprah by now. Like, I just wouldn't want to miss out on what I have to influence her. And I that question gets asked a lot. Sometimes I go back to my inner child now. I do a lot of inner child work and I like to soothe her and stuff, but gosh, I just think of all that hardship that I went through all my life. If I influenced it all and it worked out different, I'd be afraid it would change things and I'd miss out on stuff I have now.
Yeah. And that sounds really wise because it reflects just such an acceptance of life as it is.
Yeah.
Versus, well, I would want her to skip these parts. So I'm going to go tell her that. I just love that. Thank you so much for sharing your life and your wisdom and just yourself with the listeners today. Are there any last words that you have for the listeners? Any advice you'd like to give before we wrap up?
I'll give them this advice. It's the same advice I give to people who are trying to lose weight or start a business because it just applies everywhere. On day one, or when if you're looking for your person or whatever, just like when I met Chris, I was sold 100%. I'd never be married. I'd never find a good man. None of it. You do not have to believe right now that it's going to happen for you at all. Every success story on day one always says, I didn't really think it would happen, but here's what did. And so I just so you have that hope that even if you're not believing, that doesn't mean it won't happen. It just means right now you don't believe.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And not believing doesn't necessarily have any bearing on what can happen, what's possible, what's practically possible in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Corinne, I love you so much. Thank you for sharing with us today. Where can the listeners find you if they want to work with you on weight loss, if they want to work with you on business and all the other things I'm sure you have coming in the future? Please tell them where they can find you.
Well, the two main ones are you can go to nobsfreecourse.com, and that's where you can take my free weight loss course. Or you can listen to the Losing 100 Pounds podcast. But I usually tell people to take that free course. It's such a good introduction into just getting started on weight loss that makes sense, that's not full of restriction and deprivation. And then if you are an entrepreneur, especially if you're a coach or in the online space, you can go to nobsbusinesswomen.com and check out our membership over there where we're doing all the things to help women start, scale, and grow their businesses.
Yeah, thank you. Listeners, I hope you have enjoyed this hour as much as I have. We appreciate your time and attention. Please share this episode with everyone because I know I can't think of a single person who could not benefit from this episode. So please share this, share with your friends. All of Corinne's links will be in the show notes. Please check out her work. Thanks for your time and attention, and we will see you next time. Thanks for listening today. If you are ready to get married after divorce, I want to invite you to download my free 8-video training specifically designed to help divorced women date with ease and get married again. Head over to sadecurry.com to get started. That's SADECURRY.com. I'll see you inside.